I'm not sure your condition meets boarding requirements. You're going to have to wait. This is for everyone's safety. I have a priority ticket. My heart surgery. I just came from LA. I need to board. Ma'am, I don't think the airline can carry you right now. Honestly, I think you might smell. I'm not sure boarding is appropriate. Excuse me. You do not get to decide her worth. Excuse me. Who are you? We're the ones making sure she gets on this plane. You're no longer in control here. Every remaining seat on this flight is now ours. She boards. You will comply. This is a medical emergency. Children, this isn't legal. You can't. You're discriminating against a sick woman who just survived heart surgery, and your bias is not law. Legal? What you're doing isn't policy. It's prejudice. You're discriminating against a sick woman who just survived heart surgery, and your bias is not law. We've paid for every seat. Every seat. The plane is full. You want to enforce rules? Fine. These are the rules now. She boards first. Do you understand? The usual chaos of travelers rushing to catch flights, announcements echoing through the terminal, and the constant hum of conversation fills the air at the gate. But what is about to unfold here will become the most talked about airport incident of the year. Vivian Brooks, a woman with graying hair and a gentle demeanor, stands at the boarding counter, clutching her ticket with trembling hands. She's wearing a simple floral dress and carries a small medical bag, the kind heart surgery patients are given upon discharge. Her movements are careful and deliberate, the way someone moves when they're still healing from a major operation. She had undergone emergency triple bypass surgery. The doctors had been clear. She was lucky to be alive. The recovery would be long, but she was stable enough to travel. Today was supposed to be special. She was flying to Atlanta to celebrate her birthday with her elderly mother, the only family member who had bothered to visit her in the hospital. Standing behind the gate podium is Kendra Lang, a gate agent with perfectly styled hair and an air of self-importance that seems to radiate from her every gesture. She's the kind of employee who takes pleasure in enforcing rules, especially when it gives her power over others. Her nameplate gleams under the fluorescent lights, and she wears her authority like armor. But here's where this story takes an unexpected turn. Sitting quietly in the boarding area, observing everything with a kind of calm intelligence that makes adults uncomfortable, are three triplet girls, Nova, Sage, and Lyric Washington. To most passengers, they appear to be traveling alone. Three well-dressed black children with matching designer backpacks, speaking in hushed tones, while adults around them scroll through phones and complain about delays. What nobody in that airport knows, not Kendra, not the other passengers, not even Vivian herself, is that these three little girls control a business empire worth over $12 billion. They're not just traveling to Atlanta, they're flying on their private jet, which is currently being prepped at a different terminal. But something about the scene unfolding at the gate has caught their attention. Nova, the unofficial leader of the trio, has been watching Vivian struggle with the boarding process. She noticed how Vivian had to sit down while waiting in line, how she clutched her chest briefly when standing, and most importantly, how Kendra's expression had changed from professional indifference to obvious disdain the moment Vivian approached the counter. Sage, the triplet, with an eidetic memory for legal codes and corporate regulations, had already pulled up the airline's actual boarding policies on her tablet. What Kendra was doing wasn't just wrong. It was illegal under both federal disability laws and the airline's own published guidelines. Lyric, the empath of the group, who could read people's emotions like an open book, saw something that broke her heart. Vivian wasn't just being denied boarding. She was being stripped of her dignity in front of dozens of strangers, and she was too weak to fight back effectively. The triplets had learned early in their young lives that wealth without compassion was worthless. Their parents, before the accident that had changed everything, had taught them that with great power comes great responsibility. Today, they were about to put that lesson into practice in a way that would make headlines around the world. Vivian's voice shakes as she tries to reason with Kendra. I have all my medical documents. My cardiologist cleared me for travel. This flight is the only way I can reach my mother in time for my birthday. Kendra's response is cold, calculated, and loaded with barely concealed prejudice. Ma'am, I can see you're not well. Company policy is clear about passengers who might require medical assistance during flight. We cannot take that risk. What Kendra doesn't realize is that company policy actually states the opposite, that passengers with medical conditions, when cleared by their doctors, should be accommodated with additional assistance, not denied boarding. She's banking on Vivian not knowing the rules, not having the energy to fight, and not having anyone to advocate for her. She's wrong on all three counts. The other passengers begin to take notice. A businessman in an expensive suit glances up from his phone, frowning at Kendra's tone. A mother, traveling with her teenager, whispers something to her daughter, who immediately starts recording on her phone. An elderly gentleman, who reminds Vivian of her late father, steps closer as if preparing to intervene. But it's the three triplet girls who move with the most purpose. They rise from their seats in perfect unison, a movement so coordinated it's almost choreographed. Nova adjusts her designer blazer. Sage powers down her tablet and slides it into her leather messenger bag. Lyric takes a deep breath, centering herself for what's about to come. Vivian is now visibly distressed. Her face is pale, and she's gripping the counter for support. The stress of the confrontation is clearly affecting her still healing heart. Tears begin to form in her eyes, not just from frustration, but from the humiliation of being treated like a problem to be solved, rather than a human being deserving of respect. Please, Vivian whispers, her voice barely audible above the airport noise. I just want to see my mother. It's been since my surgery, and she doesn't know if I'm going to be okay. This ticket cost me my entire savings. Kendra's response reveals everything you need to know about her character. Ma'am, that's not my problem. You should have considered your limitations before booking travel. Next, that's when Nova Washington steps forward, her voice carrying an authority that seems impossible for someone her age. Actually, it just became your problem. And you're about to learn exactly how expensive that mistake is going to be. Now, what happens next unfolds like a masterclass in social dynamics, power structures, and the kind of justice that makes your soul sing. But first, let me paint you the full picture of just how wrong Kendra Lang is about to be. Vivian Brooks isn't just any passenger. She had been rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center with what doctors later described as a widowmaker heart attack. She was clinically dead for 4 minutes. The surgical team that brought her back performed what her cardiologist called a miracle of modern medicine. Vivian had spent time in intensive care, followed by cardiac rehabilitation. But here's the heartbreaking part of Vivian's story. Throughout those weeks of fighting for her life, not one of her 3 adult children came to visit. Not one. Her son Marcus, a successful lawyer in Chicago, was too busy with a major case. Her daughter Patricia, who lived just hours away in San Diego, claimed she couldn't handle hospitals. And her youngest, David, didn't even return her calls. The only person who called every single day, who sent flowers, who prayed over the phone with Vivian when the nights were too long and scary, was her elderly mother in Atlanta. A woman who had raised 6 children during the civil rights era, who had worked 3 jobs to put her kids through school, and who was now battling her own health issues, but still found the strength to be Vivian's rock. It was the first birthday Vivian would celebrate, knowing she almost didn't live to see it. Her mother, Miss Ruby Brooks, had insisted that Vivian come home to Atlanta, not just for the birthday, but for the healing that can only happen when a mother holds her child and tells them everything is going to be okay. Vivian had spent her last savings on this plane ticket. That was everything left after the medical bills, after the time off work, after the medications, and the follow-up appointments. She had chosen to eat rice and beans for weeks straight to afford this flight, because seeing her mother wasn't a luxury. It was survival. And Kendra Lang, gate agent extraordinaire, had just decided that Vivian's survival wasn't worth the minor inconvenience of processing her boarding pass. But let's talk about those 3 little girls who are now approaching the counter with the kind of confidence that makes grown adults do double takes. Nova, Sage, and Lyric Washington had been orphaned when their parents died in a car accident. But before that tragic night, Dr. Ellis Washington and Dr. Maya Washington had built something extraordinary. They had developed and patented a revolutionary water purification system that was now being used in developing countries around the world. The technology was worth billions, and they had left it all to their three daughters. The triplets didn't just inherit money, they inherited a mission. Their parents had always taught them that wealth was a tool for justice, that power was meaningless unless it was used to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Every month, the girls donated millions to causes their parents had cared about: clean water initiatives, educational programs, medical research, and legal aid for discrimination cases. They had been at LAX because they were returning from a UN conference where, despite being only children, they had addressed world leaders about global water access. Their private jet was scheduled to take off in hours, but what they were witnessing at the gate was about to change everyone's plans. Nova approaches the counter first. She's exactly 4 feet tall, but somehow manages to command the space like someone twice her size. Her voice is clear, measured, and carries the kind of authority that comes from being listened to by presidents and prime ministers. "Excuse me," Nova says to Kendra. "I couldn't help but notice that you're violating federal law." Kendra looks down at this child with a mixture of annoyance and disbelief. "Little girl, adults are talking here. Where are your parents?" Sage steps forward, her tablet already displaying the relevant legal codes. "Our parents are deceased. We're emancipated minors traveling under court order. And according to the Americans with Disabilities Act Section 382.31, you cannot deny boarding to a passenger with a disability unless they pose a direct threat to safety. This passenger has medical clearance to travel." Lyric, the quietest of the three, focuses her attention on Vivian. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need to sit down? Should we call medical assistance?" Vivian is stunned. These 3 children are showing her more compassion and respect than the gate agent has in the past minutes. I, I'm okay, sweetheart. Thank you for asking." Kendra is now visibly irritated. She's dealing with a passenger she wants gone, and 3 children who are speaking to her like they understand law better than she does. "Look, kids, I don't know what game you're playing, but this is airline business. You need to go back to your seats and wait for boarding like everyone else." That's when Nova smiles. It's not a child's smile. It's the smile of someone who has just been underestimated and is about to use that to their advantage. "Actually," Nova says, pulling out a black American Express card that most adults will never qualify for, "we won't be boarding this flight. We'll be taking our private jet. But before we do, we're going to make sure Mrs. Brooks gets the treatment she deserves." Kendra stares at the card in disbelief. That's not a real credit card. Children can't have credit cards." Sage produces a document from her bag, official court papers, declaring the triplets emancipated minors with full legal rights to conduct business. "Actually, we can. We have full legal capacity as emancipated minors, and this card has a credit limit of $50 million. The passengers nearby have stopped pretending they're not listening. Phones are coming out. People are moving closer. The businessman in the expensive suit has completely abandoned his phone call. The mother and daughter are now openly recording everything." Lyric addresses Vivian directly. "Mrs. Brooks, we heard you mention this ticket cost you your entire savings. What was the amount?" Vivian is overwhelmed. Sweetheart, you don't need to worry about that. It was $847, but please, you're just children. This isn't your responsibility." "Actually," Nova responds, "it is exactly our responsibility. Our parents taught us that when we see injustice happening and we have the power to stop it, silence makes us complicit." Kendra is beginning to realize that the situation is spiraling beyond her control, but her pride won't let her back down. "I don't care if you're the Queen of England. I have the authority to deny boarding to any passenger I deem a risk. Company policy is clear." Sage's fingers fly across her tablet screen. Actually, let me read you the real company policy. She clears her throat and begins reading in a voice that carries throughout the gate area. Passengers with medical conditions who present valid medical clearance shall be accommodated with appropriate assistance. Discrimination based on perceived disability, race, or medical condition is grounds for immediate termination and legal action. The color drains from Kendra's face. She knows she's been caught, but she's in too deep to retreat gracefully. Vivian's breathing becomes labored. The stress of the confrontation is clearly affecting her recovery. She grips her medical bag tighter, and Lyric immediately notices. "Mrs. Brooks, you need to sit down right now," Lyric says with the authority of someone who has spent time learning about cardiac care from the world's best doctors. This stress isn't good for your heart. As Vivian sits down, her hands shaking as she opens her medical bag to retrieve her prescribed nitroglycerin tablets, something shifts in the energy of the entire gate area. The other passengers can see that this isn't just about boarding policies anymore. This is about human decency, about treating a recovering heart patient with basic respect, about the difference between following rules and doing what's right. Nova looks at her sisters, and they nod in unison. They've made a decision that's about to change everything. "Kendra," Nova says, and the use of the gate agent's first name makes it clear that the power dynamic has completely shifted. "You have exactly 1 minute to process Mrs. Brooks' boarding pass and upgrade her to first class with full medical assistance. If you refuse, we're going to buy every single seat on this plane and donate them to passengers who deserve better treatment than what you're providing." Kendra laughs, but it's a nervous laugh. You can't buy every seat on a plane. That's impossible. Sage holds up her tablet showing the airline's real-time booking system. Flight 2847 LAX to Atlanta. 180 seats total. Current price per seat ranges from $289 to $1,247. Total cost to purchase all remaining seats, $127,350. We spend more than that on lunch. The entire gate falls silent. Even the boarding announcements from other gates seem to fade into the background. Everyone is staring at three triplet girls who are casually discussing spending over $100,000 like it's pocket change. Vivian can't believe what she's hearing. "Girls, please, you don't understand. I can't accept this. It's too much. You're children." Lyric kneels beside Vivian's chair, taking her hand with the gentleness of someone who understands pain. "Mrs. Brooks, our parents died in a car accident. We know what it feels like to need family, to need someone who loves you to tell you that everything is going to be okay. Your mother needs to see you, and you need to see her. That's not charity, that's humanity." Tears begin streaming down Vivian's face, but for the first time since she arrived at the gate, they're tears of gratitude rather than frustration. Kendra is now visibly panicking. She knows she's made a massive mistake, but her supervisor is nowhere to be found, and she's facing three children who apparently have more money and legal knowledge than most adults she deals with. "Look," Kendra says, her voice now less confident, "maybe we can work something out. I might have been hasty in my assessment." Nova shakes her head. "Too late for that. You had the opportunity to treat Mrs. Brooks with dignity, and you chose discrimination instead. Now you get to watch what happens when you pick on the wrong person in front of the wrong witnesses." The businessman who had been watching finally approaches. "Excuse me," he says to Kendra. "I'm Victor Lang, partner at Morrison & Associates law firm. I specialize in civil rights cases. I've been recording this entire interaction, and I want you to know that what you've done here constitutes clear discrimination under federal law. These young ladies are absolutely correct." Kendra's face goes pale. A law partner recording everything. This has gone from an inconvenient passenger to a potential lawsuit to a viral video disaster. But the triplets aren't done yet. Not even close. Nova approaches the counter and places her Black American Express card on the surface with a sound that seems to echo throughout the gate area. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your supervisor. You're going to explain that you've just discriminated against a heart surgery patient in front of multiple witnesses. And then you're going to watch us demonstrate exactly what customer service should look like. The other passengers are now openly gathering around, their phones out, their attention completely focused on this unprecedented confrontation between three triplet girls and a gate agent who has clearly bitten off more than she can chew. Vivian sits in her chair, overwhelmed by the support of these three strangers who have appeared in her life like guardian angels. She's thinking about her mother, who will be waiting at the Atlanta airport with a happy birthday sign and a heart full of worry. She's thinking about the adult children who couldn't be bothered to visit her in the hospital, but will probably call her a fool for accepting help from strangers. Most of all, she's thinking about the lesson these three remarkable children are teaching everyone at the gate. That wealth without compassion is meaningless, but compassion with the power to act is unstoppable. Kendra reaches for her phone to call her supervisor, her hands shaking as she realizes that her normal afternoon has just become the most important phone call of her career. Here's the thing about the Washington triplets. They don't just throw money at problems, they investigate them. And in the minutes since this confrontation began, Sage has been conducting the kind of background research that would make the FBI jealous. Using facial recognition software on her tablet technology that her parents' company developed for security applications, Sage has identified every person in this gate area. She knows that the businessman, Victor Lang, has successfully prosecuted major discrimination cases. She knows that the mother recording everything is Dr. Elena Torres, a prominent pediatric surgeon who has millions of followers on TikTok. She knows that the elderly gentleman who keeps inching closer to help is retired Judge Everett Reed, who spent decades on the federal bench specializing in civil rights law. But most importantly, she knows exactly who Kendra Lang is. And what she's discovered makes this situation even more outrageous. Kendra Lang has been employed by this airline for some time. In those years, she has been the subject of multiple formal complaints for discriminatory behavior. The airline has settled discrimination lawsuits involving Kendra. She should have been fired years ago, but she has connections. Her uncle is a regional manager for the airline. Her boyfriend works in the legal department. She's been protected by a system that values internal politics over customer rights, and she knows it, which is why she feels confident that whatever happens today, she'll survive it like she survived everything else. She's about to learn that three triplet girls with a passion for justice operate by different rules than corporate human resources departments. Nova isn't just planning to embarrass Kendra or get Vivian on her flight. She's planning to systematically dismantle the culture of discrimination that allowed this situation to happen in the first place. And she has the resources to do it. While they wait for Kendra's supervisor, Lyric has been having a quiet conversation with Vivian, learning her story in detail. Vivian has told her about the heart attack, about the children who didn't visit, about the mother who called every day. But she's also told her something else, something that makes Lyric's blood boil with righteous anger. This isn't the first time Vivian has been discriminated against while traveling. She was flying to her father's funeral. A different gate agent had made her wait until every other passenger boarded because they needed to verify her ticket. She was removed from the flight after a flight attendant claimed her behavior was suspicious. Her behavior being that she had asked for a glass of water and a pillow. Vivian has been dealing with this kind of treatment her entire adult life, but she's always been too tired, too poor, or too alone to fight back effectively. She's accepted it as the cost of being a black woman traveling alone, a reality that breaks Lyric's heart and fuels her determination to make sure it never happens again. Nova overhears this conversation and makes a decision that will change Vivian's life forever. She opens her phone and dials a number that most people would give anything to have. "Hello, this is Nova Washington. I need to speak with Jonathan immediately." "Yes, I know he's in a meeting. This is an emergency. Tell him it's about a discrimination case that's about to go viral, and I need his legal team mobilized within the hour." She hangs up and turns to Vivian. "Mrs. Brooks, I want you to know that this doesn't end today. We're going to make sure that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. Vivian is overwhelmed. Sweetheart, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you don't understand how the world works. People like me don't win fights against airlines. We just try to survive them. Sage looks up from her tablet with the intensity of someone who has access to information that others don't. Mrs. Brooks, people like you don't usually have people like us in their corner. The legal team that's being assembled right now has never lost a discrimination case ever. That's when Kendra's supervisor arrives and everything changes. District Manager Denise Harper is a woman who has worked for this airline for some time. She's dealt with difficult passengers, angry gate agents, and viral video disasters. She thought she had seen everything until she walked up to the gate and saw three triplet girls facing off against one of her most problematic employees, while dozens of passengers recorded everything on their phones. What exactly is happening here? Denise asks, trying to assess the situation. Nova steps forward with the composure of a seasoned negotiator. Miss Harper, I'm Nova Washington. These are my sisters, Sage and Lyric. Your gate agent has violated federal disability law by denying boarding to a heart surgery patient with proper medical clearance. We've documented the entire incident and are prepared to file both federal civil rights charges and a civil lawsuit unless the situation is resolved immediately. Denise looks at Kendra, who is now visibly sweating. Is this accurate? Kendra tries to salvage the situation. I was following company policy about passengers who might need medical assistance during flight. I was trying to protect the airline from liability. Sage interrupts, reading directly from her tablet. Company Policy Section 4.3.2. Passengers with medical conditions who present valid medical clearance shall be accommodated with appropriate assistance. Under no circumstances should boarding be denied based solely on the presence of a medical condition. Mrs. Brooks has valid medical clearance. Your employee violated both company policy and federal law. Judge Everett Reed, who has been listening to everything, steps forward. I'm retired federal judge Everett Reed. I spent decades adjudicating civil rights cases. What I've witnessed here today constitutes clear discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act. If I were still on the bench, this would be one of the easiest cases I've ever heard. Dr. Elena Torres, the pediatric surgeon with millions of TikTok followers, holds up her phone, and I've recorded everything. This video is going to be seen by millions of people unless this situation is resolved properly. Denise realizes she's not dealing with a typical passenger complaint. She's dealing with a potential public relations disaster involving legally sophisticated children, expert witnesses, and social media influencers. All while her problematic employee has clearly violated both company policy and federal law. But here's what makes this situation truly extraordinary. The triplets aren't interested in destroying the airline or even getting Kendra fired. They're interested in creating systemic change that will protect future passengers from experiencing what Vivian has experienced. Lyric speaks for the first time since the supervisor arrived. Miss Harper, we're not here to cause problems for your airline. We're here to solve them. Your company has paid out millions in discrimination settlements. You have employees like Kendra who view their authority as a weapon rather than a tool for customer service. You have policies that protect problematic employees rather than vulnerable passengers. Denise is stunned. This child is speaking with more insight about her company's problems than most of her executive team. Nova continues. We're prepared to offer your airline a partnership that will revolutionize how you handle passengers with medical conditions and disabilities. Our foundation specializes in accessibility consulting for major corporations. We can provide training, policy review, and ongoing oversight that will not only prevent future lawsuits, but position your airline as an industry leader in inclusive travel. Sage adds the specifics. We're talking about a comprehensive program worth approximately $50 million in consulting services provided free of charge to your airline. In exchange, you implement real accountability measures, proper training for all customer-facing employees, and transparent reporting on discrimination complaints. Denise's mind is racing. $50 million in free consulting services from what appears to be a legitimate foundation run by three triplet girls. This could turn a potential disaster into the opportunity of a lifetime for her airline. But the triplets aren't done yet. Nova looks directly at Kendra, who has been standing silent during this entire exchange, clearly hoping she can fade into the background and escape consequences for her actions. However, Nova says, her voice carrying the weight of final judgment, this partnership is contingent on accountability. Employees who discriminate against passengers can't simply be shuffled around or protected by internal politics. Real change requires real consequences. Vivian watches all of this unfold with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Hours ago, she was worried about whether she could afford taxi fare to the airport. Now, she's watching three children negotiate what sounds like a multi-million-dollar corporate consulting contract on her behalf. Denise looks at Kendra, then at the phone still recording everything, then at the three most remarkable children she's ever encountered. The math is simple. Sacrifice one problematic employee who should have been fired, or watch her airline become the subject of a viral discrimination video that could cost millions in lost revenue and legal fees. But the Washington triplets have one more surprise in store, something that will turn this entire situation into a teachable moment about the difference between punishment and rehabilitation, between revenge and justice. Lyric approaches Kendra directly, looking up at the gate agent who had seemed so intimidating just moments earlier. Kendra, do you know why you treat passengers like Mrs. Brooks the way you do? Kendra is caught off guard by the question. She expected to be yelled at, fired, or humiliated. She didn't expect to be asked to reflect on her behavior by a child. I don't know what you mean. You have power over people when they're vulnerable, when they're tired, stressed, worried about missing flights, or connecting with family. And instead of using that power to help them, you use it to hurt them. Why? For the first time since this confrontation began, Kendra's defensive mask slips. For just a moment, she looks less like an arrogant gate agent and more like a human being who might actually be capable of growth. But that moment is about to be tested in ways that will determine not just Kendra's future, but the future of every passenger who will ever interact with her again. Kendra stands there, surrounded by witnesses recorded by multiple cameras, facing the consequences of years of discriminatory behavior. Every instinct tells her to deflect, to make excuses, to blame company policy or difficult passengers or anything other than her own choices. But Lyric's question hangs in the air like a challenge. Why do you use your power to hurt people instead of help them? District Manager Denise Harper is calculating risk management strategies. Judge Everett Reed is mentally reviewing relevant case law. Dr. Elena Torres is considering how to frame this story for maximum social impact. Victor Lang is thinking about billable hours and settlement negotiations. But Lyric Washington is thinking about something entirely different: redemption. Kendra, Lyric says gently, my parents taught me that hurt people, so I'm wondering who hurt you. The question hits like a physical blow. Kendra's carefully constructed professional mask cracks, and for just a moment, everyone at the gate sees something unexpected: vulnerability. Because here's what nobody knows about Kendra. Information that Sage discovered during her digital investigation but chose not to share publicly. Kendra grew up in foster care. She was bounced between different homes before aging out of the system. She learned early that the only way to survive was to establish dominance quickly, to never show weakness, to use whatever small amount of power she had to protect herself from being hurt again. When she became a gate agent, she found herself in control of something for the first time in her life. People needed things from her: boarding passes, seat assignments, assistance with flights, and somewhere along the way, that power became intoxicating. It became her armor against a world that had repeatedly taught her she didn't matter. But people like Vivian, older, vulnerable, dependent on her help, triggered something in Kendra that she didn't understand. They reminded her of her own powerlessness, her own experiences of being dismissed and discarded by systems that were supposed to protect her. And instead of empathizing with that pain, she had chosen to inflict it. Lyric somehow senses all of this without knowing the specific details. You don't have to answer that question in front of everyone, Lyric says softly, but I think you should answer it for yourself. Vivian, still sitting in her chair, but now watching this interaction with fascination, recognizes something in Kendra's expression. It's the same look she saw in the mirror during those weeks in the hospital when none of her children came to visit. The look of someone who has learned that the world is not a safe place and that other people will hurt you if you give them the chance. Nova steps forward, and everyone expects her to deliver some final devastating blow to Kendra's career and reputation. Instead, she does something that catches everyone off guard. "Miss Harper," Nova says to the district manager, "we'd like to modify our offer." Denise looks confused. "Modify it how?" "We want Kendra to be part of our consulting program, not as an example of what not to do, but as a case study in how people can change when they're given proper support and training." The entire gate falls silent. Even the background noise of the airport seems to fade away as people process what they just heard. Sage steps forward with documentation already prepared on her tablet. "Our foundation has had remarkable success with rehabilitation programs for employees who have engaged in discriminatory behavior. The key is addressing the root causes of that behavior while providing concrete tools for change." Kendra stares at the three children in disbelief. "You want to help me after what I did?" Lyric nods. "We want to help everyone. That's the point. Mrs. Brooks deserves better treatment than what you gave her, but you deserve better than being trapped in patterns of behavior that hurt other people and ultimately hurt you, too." Vivian stands up slowly, her voice shaky, but determined. "I want to say something." Everyone turns to listen. "Kendra, what you did to me today was wrong. It was hurtful, it was discriminatory, and it was illegal. But these children are offering you something I never got when I was being mistreated. They're offering you a chance to be better." Tears begin forming in Vivian's eyes. "When I was lying in that hospital bed, thinking I might die, I kept wondering why my children couldn't find time to visit me. I wondered what I had done wrong as a mother, what I had failed to teach them about love and compassion and showing up for people who need you." Her voice grows stronger. But watching these three little girls fight for a stranger, watching them offer grace to someone who showed them none, this is what I wanted my children to learn. This is what it means to be human. She looks directly at Kendra. "So yes, I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because forgiveness is what allows people to change. And if you're willing to change, then what happened here today wasn't meaningless. It was the first day of you becoming someone better." The emotional weight of Vivian's words settles over everyone in the gate area. Dr. Elena Torres has tears streaming down her face as she continues recording. Judge Everett Reed is nodding approvingly. Victor Lang looks like he's witnessing something that might restore his faith in human nature. But it's Kendra's response that will determine whether this story ends in triumph or tragedy. She looks at Vivian, then at the triplets, then at her supervisor, who holds her career in her hands. For years, Kendra Lang has made choices based on fear, on self-protection, on the assumption that the world is divided into those who have power and those who get hurt by it. Today, she's being offered a third option: the possibility that power can be used to heal rather than harm, that vulnerability can lead to strength rather than exploitation, that redemption is available even to those who have caused pain. "I don't know if I can change," Kendra whispers, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if I know how." Nova smiles. The first genuinely warm smile she's shown since this confrontation began. "That's okay. Not knowing how to change is different from not being willing to try. Are you willing to try?" Denise Harper realizes she's witnessing something extraordinary. In her years with this airline, She has dealt with discrimination complaints through legal settlements, employee terminations, and corporate damage control. She has never seen anyone offer transformation as an alternative to punishment. If Kendra agrees to participate in your program, Denise says carefully, what would that look like? Sage is ready with specifics. Months of intensive training on unconscious bias, customer service excellence, and cultural competency. Monthly, one-on-one coaching sessions with our behavioral specialists, quarterly progress reviews with measurable goals, and most importantly, direct mentorship from passengers who have experienced discrimination so she understands the real impact of her choices. Lyric adds the emotional component and therapy. Real therapy to address whatever pain is causing her to hurt other people, because you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. Kendra looks around at the faces surrounding her, witnesses to her worst behavior, who are now offering her a chance at redemption. The old Kendra would reject this offer out of pride, would claim she doesn't need fixing, would blame everyone else for misunderstanding her intentions. But something in Vivian's forgiveness, something in Lyric's compassion, something in the possibility that she doesn't have to remain trapped in patterns of behavior that make her miserable, opens a door in Kendra's heart that has been locked for years. What if I fail? Kendra asks. What if I go through your program and I'm still this person? Nova's answer reveals wisdom that seems impossible for a child. Then you'll be this person who tried to be better. That's still better than being this person who never tried at all. Judge Everett Reed steps forward, his voice carrying the authority of decades on the federal bench. Young lady, what these children are offering you is remarkable. In decades of civil rights law, I've seen very few opportunities for genuine redemption. I suggest you accept their offer. Dr. Elena Torres lowers her phone. Whatever decision you make, it's going to be seen by millions of people. You can be remembered as someone who discriminated against a heart surgery patient, or someone who had the courage to change when given the opportunity. Victor Lang, the civil rights attorney, adds his perspective. From a legal standpoint, participating in this program would demonstrate good faith efforts at remediation, which courts view very favorably in discrimination cases. But it's Vivian who provides the final push. Kendra, I'm going to Atlanta to celebrate my birthday with my mother. It's the first birthday I'll have, knowing I almost didn't live to see it. When she asks me about my flight, I want to be able to tell her about the gate agent who started out trying to keep me from flying, but ended up teaching me something about forgiveness and second chances. Kendra takes a deep breath, and everyone in the gate holds theirs, waiting to see whether this story ends in destruction or transformation. I accept, Kendra says, her voice stronger than it's been all day. I accept your offer, and I'm sorry, truly sorry for how I treated you, Mrs. Brooks. You deserved so much better. The entire gate area erupts in spontaneous applause. Passengers who have been watching this drama unfold are witnessing something they've never seen before. Accountability that leads to growth rather than punishment. Justice that includes redemption rather than revenge. But the Washington triplets aren't done yet. They have one more surprise that will turn this story into a legend. Because Nova Washington reaches into her designer bag and pulls out something that makes everyone at the gate question everything they think they know about coincidence, destiny, and the mysterious ways that justice sometimes works in this world. It's a photograph, an old photograph creased from years of careful handling, protected in a clear plastic sleeve. And when she hands it to Vivian, the older woman's face goes completely white. "Where did you get this?" Vivian whispers, staring at the photograph with trembling hands. "It belonged to our parents," Nova says softly. Dr. Ellis and Dr. Maya Washington. They kept it in their office, and after they died, we found it among their most treasured possessions. The photograph shows two young doctors, one black man and one black woman, working in what appears to be a free medical clinic. They're treating patients who clearly can't afford traditional health care. And in the background, helping to organize medical supplies, is a woman in her early 20s. It's Vivian, younger, but unmistakably Vivian Brooks. "I don't understand," Vivian says. though tears are already forming in her eyes, because part of her does understand. Part of her has been carrying this memory for decades. Sage steps forward with additional documentation. Our parents ran a free clinic in South Los Angeles. According to their records, you volunteered there for months while you were working 2 jobs and taking night classes to become a certified medical assistant. Lyric's voice is gentle, but filled with emotion. They wrote about you in their journals. They said you were one of the most compassionate volunteers they ever worked with. You stayed late to comfort patients who were scared. You organized fundraisers to buy medical equipment. And you never missed a shift, even when you were exhausted from your other jobs. Vivian is now crying openly, the photograph shaking in her hands. Ellis and Maya. Oh my God. Ellis and Maya Washington. They were just residents then, but they were the kindest people I'd ever met. They treated everyone with such dignity, such respect. Her voice breaks. When the clinic lost its funding and had to close, I was heartbroken. I kept hoping I'd run into them again. But medical residency is so demanding, and then life, just life happens. I always wondered what became of them. Nova takes Vivian's free hand in both of hers. They never forgot you. They named their foundation after you. The Vivian Brooks Foundation for Dignity and Healthcare. Every free clinic we fund, every scholarship we provide for medical students from underserved communities, every program we create to eliminate healthcare discrimination. It's all named after the woman who taught them that medicine without compassion is just science. But medicine with compassion can heal the world. The entire gate area has gone silent. Even the airport announcements seem to have stopped. Everyone is witnessing something that feels less like coincidence and more like divine intervention. Vivian looks at the 3 children who have just turned her world upside down. You're their daughters, Ellis and Maya's daughters. We are, Lyric says, tears streaming down her face. And you're the woman who helped shape who they became as doctors and as human beings. You're the reason we learned that wealth without service is meaningless, that power without compassion is hollow. Judge Everett Reed removes his glasses and wipes his eyes. In decades of adjudicating cases, he has never witnessed anything like this. Dr. Elena Torres has stopped recording because she's crying too hard to hold her phone steady. Victor Lang is staring at this scene with the expression of someone who has just witnessed something that will change how he thinks about justice for the rest of his career. District Manager Denise Harper is realizing that what she initially thought was a customer service disaster has actually become the most beautiful story her airline has ever been part of. But it's Kendra's reaction that surprises everyone most. She approaches Vivian hesitantly, her earlier defensiveness completely gone. Mrs. Brooks, Kendra says, her voice thick with emotion. I had no idea. I'm so sorry, not just for today, but for not seeing who you were, for not seeing who any of my passengers are. Vivian looks at Kendra with the same compassion she once showed to scared patients in a free clinic decades ago. Kendra, you couldn't have known. But now you do know. Now you know that every passenger has a story, has people who love them, has contributed something valuable to the world. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Nova steps forward with one final revelation that will complete this circle of justice in the most extraordinary way possible. Mrs. Brooks, our parents left instructions in their will. If we ever found you, we were supposed to give you something. She pulls out an envelope sealed and carefully preserved since her parents' death. Vivian's name is written on the front in handwriting she recognizes immediately. Dr. Maya Washington's distinctive script. Vivian opens the envelope with shaking hands and reads aloud. Dear Vivian, if our daughters are reading you this letter, it means we're no longer here to thank you in person for the gift you gave us. You taught us that being a doctor isn't about having the right credentials or the most advanced technology. It's about seeing the humanity in every person who needs help. About treating people with dignity, regardless of their circumstances, about using whatever power you have to make the world a little bit kinder. Her voice breaks, but she continues. We named our foundation after you because you embody everything we wanted our daughters to learn about service and compassion. The work you did in our clinic wasn't just volunteering, it was ministry. You didn't just help us treat patients, you showed us how to honor them. Vivian pauses, overwhelmed by emotion, then reads the final paragraph. We've established a trust fund in your name to be delivered if our daughters ever found you. It's not payment for your service. Your service was priceless. It's a tool so you can continue the work of bringing dignity and compassion to healthcare. Use it wisely, use it generously, and know that every life you touch is a continuation of the legacy you helped us build. Nova hands Vivian another document, bank papers showing a trust fund worth $2 million, waiting for this moment. Vivian stares at the papers in disbelief. $2 million? It's yours, Sage says simply. Our parents wanted you to have the resources to continue making a difference in people's lives. But Lyric has one more surprise, and we'd like to offer you a position as Director of Compassionate Care for the Vivian Brooks Foundation. It would involve overseeing our healthcare dignity programs, training medical professionals and patient advocacy, and making sure that what happened to you today never happens to anyone else seeking medical care. Vivian looks around at the faces surrounding her, witnesses to what started as discrimination and has transformed into one of the most beautiful stories of redemption, reunion, and justice any of them have ever experienced. She thinks about her mother waiting in Atlanta, about the birthday celebration that seemed so uncertain just hours ago, about the adult children who couldn't be bothered to visit her in the hospital, but who will undoubtedly suddenly have time for her once they learn about her new circumstances. Most of all, she thinks about Ellis and Maya Washington, two young doctors who showed her that medicine could be a ministry and who are continuing to impact lives through their remarkable daughters even after death. I accept, Vivian says, her voice strong and clear for the first time since she arrived at the gate. I accept the position, I accept the trust fund, and I accept the responsibility that comes with both. She turns to address everyone in the gate area. What you've witnessed here today isn't just about airline policies or discrimination laws. It's about the truth that we're all connected, that kindness creates ripples that travel through decades, that second chances can transform not just individuals, but entire systems. She looks directly at Kendra, and it's about the truth that redemption is always possible for those brave enough to choose it. The spontaneous applause that erupts from the gate area is unlike anything anyone has ever heard in an airport. It's not just clapping. It's the sound of people celebrating the possibility that the world can be better than it is, that justice and mercy can coexist, that children can teach adults how to use power responsibly. Denise Harper steps forward with tears in her eyes. Mrs. Brooks, on behalf of this airline, I want to formally apologize for your treatment today and invite you to fly first class to Atlanta at no charge. Your return flight and any future flights with us will also be complimentary for life. She turns to the triplets, and I want to formally accept your consulting partnership. Our airline needs the kind of transformation you're offering. Judge Everett Reed raises his voice to address everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed something extraordinary. You've seen justice that includes redemption, power used for healing rather than harm, and children who understand moral leadership better than most adults. This is a story you'll be telling for the rest of your lives. Dr. Elena Torres, still wiping tears from her eyes, holds up her phone. And it's a story that millions of people are going to see, because this video is going to remind the world that extraordinary things happen when ordinary people choose compassion over indifference. As Vivian prepares to board her flight to Atlanta, first class, with full medical assistance, surrounded by the love and support of 3 children who have just changed her life forever, she realizes that this story isn't ending, just beginning. Because she'll start her new position with the Vivian Brooks Foundation. She'll begin the work of training healthcare professionals to see patients as human beings deserving of dignity, rather than problems to be solved. She'll help create systems that prevent discrimination and promote compassion. And Kendra will begin her own journey of transformation, learning to use her authority to help rather than hurt, to see passengers as people with stories rather than obstacles to her efficiency. The ripples from this single afternoon at the gate will spread outward for years to come, touching lives that haven't even been born yet, creating a legacy of justice and mercy that will honor the memory of Dr. Ellis and Dr. Maya Washington, while ensuring that their daughter's compassion continues to heal the world. As Vivian boards the plane that will take her home to her mother's birthday celebration, she carries with her not just the memory of discrimination overcome, but the promise of a future where such discrimination becomes impossible because too many people have learned to choose love over fear, redemption over revenge, and hope over despair. And in the gate area behind her, 3 triplet girls pack up their tablets and prepare to board their private jet, knowing they've done exactly what their parents raised them to do. Use their power to make the world a little bit kinder, one person at a time. If this incredible story of justice, redemption, and the power of compassion has moved you as much as it's moved me, please hit that subscribe button right now. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary things happen when ordinary people choose to do what's right, regardless of the cost. And make sure to hit that notification bell, because I have so many more stories of justice and triumph that you absolutely need to hear. This story shows us that our actions have consequences we might never see, that kindness creates ripples that can travel through decades. What's one act of kindness someone showed you that changed your life? Share it in the comments below. After witnessing this incredible reunion, I think we all need reminders that our compassion matters more than we know.